Ever since we announced to the public that we were doing this record, a lot of people are taking things out of context and thinking that we're actually working on a country record. But no, it's not a country record. It's country songs that we made sound like DevilDriver.
You know, people put that online and it was just like, well, hold on. In no moment should you be concerned, because this is probably one of the heaviest records this group's ever offered. You know, it's brutal as fuck, you know?
It's not a country record. It's pure metal, DevilDriver metal. I mean, I think it's got some light moments in it, but it's also got some of the heaviest points of DevilDriver's career, I think. It's, yeah, definitely, it's not, you know, your average country listener is probably not going to, you know, that listens to country nowadays, the radio country nowadays, is not going to be into this record, I would think.
Oh, 100%. Like, you know, you take a song like Whiskey River by Willie Nelson, and it's, you know, Whiskey River, take my mind, right? But it's a black metal song on our record. And it features Randy from Lamb of God and myself. And Randy's actually on 2 songs, on Ghost Riders and on Whiskey River. And it's like, Whiskey River, take my mind. And him and I, in our highest registers that we've never even used in our own bands. So I think it was a matter of taking these songs and doing them the way that I heard them, and using those lyrics that were so, like, just visceral to me, and putting them in a metal tune.
Well, originally, I just agreed to do just one song, Whiskey River, because he'd sent me a list of songs that they were covering, and I saw Willie Nelson's song, and I saw Whiskey River, which is, you know, one of my favorite Willie Nelson songs. And I was like, can I do that? And he's like, yes. I'm like, awesome. But I had no idea of how it was going to sound. Like, he hadn't really sent me anything. So I was just like, they'll make it cool. And I figured maybe I get to, you know, use my singing chops a little bit. Then I get here and it sounds like, you know, Dark Throne or something. It's like super fast. And I'm like, okay, there goes that idea.
We did add some things that were, you know, country elements, such as like slide guitar and lap steel, but distorted in more of a metal way, I would say. And Neil and I enjoyed doing that so much that I think on the next DevilDriver record, we're gonna actually implement some of that stuff into DevilDriver originals, just because we had so much fun doing it on the Outlaw record. But as far as paying homage to the originals, yes and no. Throughout the record, there are some songs that sound very much like the originals, and there's quite a few that don't sound anything like the originals whatsoever. There's a couple songs on there where the content wasn't really there to make a good metal song out of it, so we had to kind of improvise and actually write some original riffs underneath, you know, the original idea of the song.
When I hear it, I'm like, I've never heard anything like this, you know? Neil does a lot of crazy, like a lot of his solos are like on this slide guitar, which is just like not a thing in metal. And he rips that shit.
The rough idea, came from Dez, but I've been thinking about it for at least a decade. I've always thought that lap steel could really be a cool element to add to a metal record, and you know, not in the way that you necessarily have to sing about trucks or anything, but just have the music, you know, with the flavor of that. You know, I'd heard it a couple times before, but never in the way that we've done it here. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of the biggest thing to the record for me, is that I get to add those little flares of lap steel, things that I don't normally get to do, you know.
At times, I guess I tried to do what maybe metal would be like if it were more country, and kind of did more double time style approach, like more stuff like that rather than all groove. There's more moments of that than usual for me, because that's kind of what it called for. But for the most part, I mean, it's, yeah, I can't reiterate more that it's just an onslaught of brutality. Like my feet were definitely put to the test, just like the last record, and just certain songs I probably play more double bass than I've ever done on any one song ever. You know what I'm saying? If you're into that kind of thing, you'll love this. You know, there's black metal moments that are, you're like, what? Country, black metal, they don't really go together, but you'll see. I mean,
after, you know, AWOL Nation's Sail, the cover we did of that one, which has become definitely one of the more popular DevilDriver songs, a lot of it is done in the same vein as, you know, what we did with Sail. is a very non-metal song that it sounds like the original very much, but it's just our take on what, it's like, well, if DevilDriver had written that song, what would it sound like?
For the most part, I tried to pick at least one or two prominent things about the original to keep, and besides that, kind of start with a blank slate. I'm always writing riffs, and I just think like, oh, this riff would kind of be cool if it had, the cadence of the vocal of, this George Jones song over it or something. And maybe not, even in the same time signature, but this riff somehow reminded me of something else. So then I'll take that, maybe I'll take the original melody, put that in a guitar line, throw it over there. I mean, it's a kind of a complex and abstract thought when you're just, you're basically writing your own riffs for this. I mean, I wrote my own riffs. It's not like I took the, the 1-4-5 country structure and just did that 11 times.
That's a different kind of sound, because it has a DevilDriver sound. It's not like this sounds like country. Like there's this sound from country music, but the sound is different. DevilDriver sound.
Yeah, I mean it's the last thing we want to do is put out a record that doesn't sound like us. And at times that might seem like a stretch coming from slow country ballads from the late 70s, but it seemed to work.
You're asking about how the typical country music fan is going to react. I don't think they're going to react because I don't think they're going to listen to it. I don't think this is an opportunity for us to educate country music fans about the virtues of metal at all. What I think it is an opportunity is for, some metalheads who might listen to this stuff and like, I really dig that tune. Knowing that it's a cover, they might go back and check out the original, I don't think people from the Grand Ole Opry are going to be calling me or Mr. Fafara or anybody else on the record anytime soon to come to Nashville to sing with Minnie Pearl, or anything. I think if we go to Nashville, we're going to have to take it by storm, which, could happen. I'd love to do a live show of the tunes we did.
I think, if you played it for any old country fan, I don't think they would know what it is at all. But that's not really the point of that. I think what I think is cool about this project is that I compare to how I grew up on all the bands I like. I used to read Metal Edge and Hit Parader and Circus, and I was reading all the 80s bands and all the hair metal bands I was in. I was reading what was Wasp, what did Wasp listen to? Why does Blackie Lawless look like he does? Why does this band look like that? And then I would read them go, well, we listen to Mott the Hoople, and then we listen to T-Rex, and we listen to The Sweet. And I'm like, who the fuck are these bands? So I went back and I searched out those bands, and it built the spectrum of rock and roll for me. Like, I know how music's been created. It was like I schooled myself by listening to my idols or my heroes and who their heroes were. So I'm hoping with a record like this, it can, the people can relate to the lyrics and some of the things like that, and they'll check out some of these older artists, and it'll open your mind, man. That's what I've always said. Listening to one type of music is just going to make you play one kind of music. You need to open your mind to everything, and it could be country to jazz to anything, just something to separate. He can't be the Incredible Hulk all the time. He's got to calm down sometimes.
I think they'd be jazzed, actually. I got family in Texas still, and they're just, one of my, my brothers, my twin brothers does folk, he does like Americana folk music, and then I have a brother-in-law, he's a country artist. He loves what I do, and he comes to my shows, and I think he'd get a blast out of it. It's not something he would listen to all the time, but if he heard some music that he recognizes, he'd give it a shot. So I think they'd be open to it.
Nah, man, I think that people hear something good and they recognize it as that first. Worrying about how you describe it exactly later, when something is a good idea, played well, everybody's heart and soul's in it, how can you go wrong?
I know a lot of country fans will relate to it because some of them are open-minded, and then again, you got other people out there that think any kind of music that's not this kind of music is bad music. So who knows? But since it's DevilDriver and Dez, and they're, you know, within their sound that people are used to, I think it's gonna be, you know, a good thing for the band. I know they got to have fun with it. And for a fan, if someone's driving down the road and it came on the radio, some people might say, oh, okay, that's a Willie Nelson song, that's a Waylon Jennings song. But is it a Willie Nelson song? Or is it a Waylon song? Or did somebody else write that song that you thought was a Willie Nelson song or a Waylon Jennings song?
Well, I think it's going to depend on what country people you're talking about. You know, I mean, I have friends that are wide open to this kind of thinking. Jamie Johnson, you know, of course, Shooter Jennings, you know, it's, to me, it's the stock that I come from. It's the way of thinking. It's like, there are no rules to music as far as I see it. And so I'm from that school. So there's a lot of people that believe there are rules, and I'm not one of them. But so, you know, some people may feel differently about it, but no, to me, it makes perfect sense.